So I know the last time we got together, we went through the database training and we went through everything on the membership dashboard, current membership rosters, the new membership in the last 90 days, those event registrations, and any of those financial dashboards, age receivables, and sales over time. Any questions on any of this, or did this all make sense from that last training now that you guys have had a chance to think about it?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. We just really need to go through the information only, and then the people without, what do we call them? People without homes, so we can look at getting that total number down. That's something that Brandon and I work through.
Yes, and I'm working on that. I'm going to have to manually move those guys, so bear with me, but I'll definitely get that taken care of for you guys.
I thought you were just moving the information only people, that you weren't moving the people. Where are the people without a home?
So we're just moving the information only, and then we're also moving member employee with no organization, correct?
Yeah, we're moving all of those guys to prospect.
So this one's easy. The information only, I have to go through and I'm going to have to unlink every single person from their company before I can move them to prospect.
Okay.
So, but I've got it on my list. I'll get there for you, I promise.
Okay, and then what I will do is I will go through, because I'll be able to see by site under agency and underwriter to make, there might be accidentally some people in there that aren't members that threw up, like that ended up in there, and we can move those over to prospects. And then we'll see numbers wise, and then maybe Brendan and I can look at some of the agent reps to see how long it's been since they've taken a class, or to pull some of those people off there. Because when we do some renewals, some of that stuff will change. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Okay. All right. Awesome. And then
in case we couldn't get it down far enough, you know what I mean? If we have to move up a level, but hopefully not.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So if we have to end up moving up a level when we're ready to launch, we were pretty far over, weren't we?
Yeah,
yeah,
like
but I think
307 over by the time we move all the other stuff to prospects.
Ah, I see.
Once we move, what is that, about 500 people over, we're still at 2,800, yeah, or something, roughly.
2807.
Well, thank you, Brendan.
You're welcome.
Right? So I'll go through and see. I mean, so Brendan and I can do still some culling, but.
Well, what I was wondering is, you know, can she get a grace period? So, because I think ideally once we launch, I think we'll be sending emails to all the individual users telling them to log in. Is that correct?
Right. So when we're ready to launch, we're going to send them a welcome email, and we'll have their username data merged into that email, as well as a link that will allow them to create their password. So are you talking about like kind of seeing who pays their dues, and if they don't pay their dues, we can move them to prospects?
Well, or even if it's an individual user who's associated with a member who has paid their dues, but for any user who doesn't log in the first 60 days and update their info, we would just move them back to prospects.
Yeah, it's more for the reps. That's where we'll lose the people. The companies will stay, but the people that work for them and that want to be online, that changes. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So maybe what we can do is allow the members we can allow those key contacts, kind of the company representatives, to go in, and if they need to unlink any of those members, maybe we can, I can definitely try to buy y'all some time after we launch to get some of this straightened out and see if we can get rid of anybody. So I'll do my best on that.
So, okay. But I think that's a good idea, right? Because we don't really know how it's all gonna.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to say. We might have people who've left companies or changed emails or whatever. And so some of those users may be inaccurate, or just people who aren't going to use the system. And if they're not going to use the system, then there's sort of no reason to have them in there.
Yeah, and then on the other side, we might have some companies say, oh, I want to add 25 more people, right? So we don't really know till the renewal process hits.
Right. Exactly. That makes sense. All right.
Okay. Yeah, because our current system works a little differently, and so well, quite a bit differently. So that's why we don't know exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Yeah, we'll try to see if we can find some time to allow your companies to kind of situate themselves a little bit and see exactly how they're going to use the system. Like, are they going to add more people, or are they going to take some people away? So we'll see if we can give them some time to do that. All right, awesome. So we also talked about the settings and account settings tab. Any questions on, and we're running a little bit slow, any questions on any of these items that we reviewed?
Not for me.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and dive into our financials. I am going to use my MemberClicks test site as we go through financials because it makes it a little bit easier to see what the invoices are going to look like once you have invoices created in the system. So to do that, I'm just going to hover over the financial tab and go to invoices. Same thing on your site. We're just going to hover over the financial tab and go to invoices. Now, there are going to be a couple of additional items for you to complete from today's training, and I'll point those out as we get there in the system. So the first thing I want to talk about is when we go to that financial and invoices area, this is where all of your invoices are housed in the system, whether invoices are open, paid, partially paid, voided, whatever the status of the invoice, it'll be in this area forever and all time. So that means over time, you're going to wind up with a ton of invoices in the system. So going back to the MemberClicks test site, because we know you're going to have a lot of invoices in the system and we need to make this as easy as possible for your members, for you guys to navigate those invoices, we've added a search bar up here in the top right-hand corner. You can search your invoices by first name, last name, organization name, or invoice number. I know I have a few invoices in here, so I'm just going to search my name, and this is going to bring up every invoice created in the system for me. Something kind of cool that a lot of my associations don't realize is you can select any of these column headers. Maybe I wanted to sort these by due date, and it's going to list these most recent to oldest to most recent. I can select it again, and it's going to do it in the reverse order. So we can click on any of these column headers if we wanted to sort by any of this information. We can also sort by invoice type. So we can filter by the invoice type. We can filter to see just the ad hoc invoices. Those are like miscellaneous invoices, credit memos, any invoices that came through from forms. And lastly, renewals. So any dues renewals. If I wanted to see just my renewals, I could apply that filter. And this will list my dues renewals in the system. Lastly, we can search by status of the invoice. So if I only wanted to see my open invoices that were a renewal, I could select open, the open status. And now we've narrowed it down to my one invoice that's open in the system. Any questions on what you can search by as far as the invoices go in the system and how we can access them?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, awesome. So once we've found the invoice that we were looking for, we can take a couple of different actions. By tagging that invoice, there's an actions button that becomes available, an actions drop down. From here, we can email tagged invoices. So I may call you back and say, hey guys, I haven't received my invoice, or I lost my invoice. Can you resend it to me? By tagging this invoice and emailing the tagged invoice, it's going to allow you to send this invoice to me. Again, so I just sent that to myself. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So it's going to, by default, send it to the email address that's in their profile. If you want to, you can change this email address or add additional email addresses. All right. In addition, we can use the actions drop-down and create a PDF. So this allows us to print off our invoices. A lot of my associations, it might be transferring from a paper system to trying to get to a paperless system. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll send out all the dues renewal invoices online. And then about a month after those your members have received or have had those in their inboxes, maybe they'll send them again a second time online, but then we'll print them all off and send them, they'll send them to them kind of snail mail. So that way, if somebody's not looking in their email, they can send a welcome letter through their snail mail, since that might be how they're looking for the invoices. And of course, they can submit the invoice back with a check. I'm going to show you how we can apply check payments in just a moment, or offline payments. Lastly, from this area, we can void our tagged invoices. So in this case, I would be tagging my one invoice that we have, voiding the one invoice that we have tagged. I'm going to go ahead and select the invoice number. This is going to bring us into the invoice view. This is exactly how y'all's invoices will look, but it'll be your logo in the top right-hand corner and your association information over here in the top left-hand corner. I'm going to ask you guys to add these two items in just a moment to your invoices as kind of part of the homework from today's training. So take note of where these items are showing up. So when I mention where you guys can add this information in at, you'll know exactly what it's affecting.
Okay, Miss Adrian, you'll be proud to know I already did that.
Oh my gosh. It was pretty easy, but I'm excited that you went ahead and did that. That's awesome. You're already ahead of the game.
Other stuff, when it told me to look at the default template, I'm like, oh, hey, wait a minute. I could do this.
Awesome job.
Template, but you know, okay.
Awesome. All right. So the next item that I want to take note of, we have our notes piece on the invoice. This is just going to be external notes that'll show up on the invoice. I'm going to show you in a moment where you can add those in. This is going to be, you can add this in from the invoice templates that we talked about a moment ago, and I'll point out exactly where it's pulling from. But this can be changed. So a lot of times remit payment to information goes here, but it can be changed depending on what type of invoice is being created, right? What type of invoice template you're using. The last piece here is there's also an area where you can add internal comments. If you guys are anything like me, if I were to void this invoice right now, I would walk away from my desk and forget 20 seconds later why I voided it. So I love that there's an internal notes area, so you could say, you know, voided invoice because member decided not to come to the event, or voided invoice because the member is not renewing based on conversation held on January 10th. Whatever the case may be, you can add those internal notes on your invoice. You can also, from the invoice, download the invoice and print off, void the invoice, create a credit invoice, and lastly, pay the invoice. Paying the invoice is how you guys are going to apply online, or I'm sorry, like if you get a credit card information over the phone. So maybe I called you guys and said, hey, I don't have time to get online. Can you just put in my credit card information for me? You can collect my credit card info over the phone, submit that credit card payment. The invoice will now reflect as paid. The other side of that is you may receive a check in the mail. In that case, you would want to create an offline payment. The type, maybe it's a check, amount to be paid, a reference or check number, the date you received, and then you can just submit the offline payment. Once again, at that time, the invoice will reflect as paid in the system. Any questions on that process? Because this is something you guys will probably be doing frequently.
I mean, I think it sounds pretty self-explanatory. I could see myself the first time, a couple times I do it, forgetting and having to figure it out. But I don't know, Jen, you think it looks pretty?
Yeah, it looks pretty straightforward.
Awesome. And you're exactly right. Once your hands have gotten in the system and you guys go through a couple of these, it'll probably make a lot more sense, but this is a really easy process to follow. So cool beans. All right. So then we're going to go ahead and skip to the invoice templates. So we talked about this a moment ago. So these are all the different types of example invoice templates that we've created in MemberClicks. Whether it's for donations, events, membership, merchandise. This one is for no notification. So a lot of times my associations will create like a miscellaneous invoice template, and that miscellaneous invoice template you would typically have no notifications turned on for it. So if you just needed to create a really quick miscellaneous invoice template, send out the invoice, but you didn't want any notifications to go along with it, then you might want to set one up with no notifications. It's always a good backup to have just in case you need something for a one-off reason. So if we go back into your system, go to your invoice templates, we've got your new members that I created a moment ago. I've changed this to dues renewals, do not touch, because there are still some things that your dues renewal notifications, despite coming out from a different part of the system, will still be pulling from your invoice template, such as your footer information. Once again, a great place to put remit payment to info, or thank you for your continued membership, or if you have any questions, please give us a call at whatever number you have. So you can really use this footer information. And this is really the only thing that dues renewal invoice template's pulling from, but we still need to have it set up. But you don't need to turn any of the notifications on because they're coming elsewhere from the system.
So Adrienne, when I go into my system and I look at invoice templates, I just have the dues renewal do not touch that you made and new members. I don't have any of these other set ones in there.
So that's because it is y'all's responsibility to create any additional invoice templates you might need, because we don't know what you're going to be invoicing for in your system. It's different for every association.
Well, I just got confused because you were like, these are standard ones we just have in here. So I thought they were supposed to.
These are I'm just giving you some examples. So everybody in our company plays around with member clicks. And so these would all be just different types of examples they've created for other associations in the past to test or whatever the case may be. So these are just some examples that might inspire some ideas to help you guys decide what type of invoice templates you all need for your association.
All right, no worries. I get it now. I just was thinking those were supposed to show up or something, so I was confused. Okay.
Yeah, and then going back to your invoice templates. So you'll definitely need a new members, dues renewals. You'll definitely need one for events. But not only do you want to just create it, but you'll also want to come in here, turn on the notifications that you want to go out that correspond with that type of invoice. And you probably want to edit the email as well, as I mentioned, to personalize it a little bit.
Okay.
You may want to update the subject line. New invoice to me sounds a little spammy, like I'm getting something. It's like, you have a new invoice. Do I really, or are you just, what are you doing here? So you might want to update that. I don't know, but awesome. Yeah, any other questions on that piece?
No, and I think we'll get into this later. I'm just wondering how they relate to forms, but we can do that in another.
Oh, yeah. So I'll show you really quickly because I'm the kind of person
right
where I don't.
And then
yeah.
it relates to this invoice. That's kind of what I was wondering.
So the way to work, and this is going to be a crash course, membership application. So when we have a form, inside of the form in the payment section, so if I go all the way down, and don't worry if this looks like a different language, you're going to learn it. We have a payment section. In the payment section, we have to tell the form what invoice template to use.
Oh.
So if the form is a registration form for an event and the event has a field on it to charge me $25, maybe I have to pay at time of form submission. So when I submit my registration for the event, you may force me to pay for that event right then and there. And if so, you don't need a new invoice notification, a reminder notification, a past due notification, but you still want to send me a payment confirmation, because nobody likes to make a payment online and then their money's just gone and they never hear anything else about it. That would probably bring in a lot of phone calls like, where did my money go? I think I paid, but I never heard anything else. So that's why we use those invoice templates. And this is where we're going to list which invoice template this form would use. If the form isn't creating an invoice, maybe it's just a survey. In that case, we don't need an invoice template. Maybe you have a donation form that would create an invoice template. Is that kind of making sense? Is it linking together a little bit?
Yeah, starting to, okay. Yes.
When we do the forms training, it'll way even more make sense. But this is just a glimpse of where it's going to, in the payment section of our forms, we'll always have to choose an invoice template if the form is creating an invoice.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that's invoice templates. We've got your revenue accounts, which I need to finish creating. To create a new revenue account, we're going to select add new revenue account. You add the account name. You can add a description, but that's optional. If it's a revenue account for dues, we turn on that it's dues revenue. If it's not for dues, we leave dues revenue turned off. So you guys can have your financials based on two different types of systems. It could be cash or it could be accrual. Do you guys know off the top of your head if you're on a cash or accrual-based accounting system?
We're on accrual.
Perfect. So accrual is the default because I'd say 98% of our associations are on accrual. It's most typical.
Okay.
So the only reason you would ever use the second toggle is if you were on cash. Since y'all are accrual, you're just going to leave it just as it is, and then you would hit save, and that would create a new revenue account. So it's that simple.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And then lastly, we have your payment processor. So in your payment processor, this is going to be, of course, what's collecting money and putting it into your bank account. I have that you guys are using Moolah. Have you by chance started the Moolah application for your payment processor?
Done, sent in. We're just waiting now.
Awesome. You guys rock. That's really great. Okay. That's kind of everything on financials. We do have a transaction report where you can pull a transaction report from your financials. Now, this would list not just the sale, but it would list the debit and the credit. So this is how you would reconcile your accounts. You would have the sale, $50, and then the payment, $50 to give you a $0 balance. So you would want this area to reflect $0. You would want everything to, over time, balance out. You can sort this through your by dates. A lot of times associations will do reconcile their accounts in QuickBooks once a month, so you can pull this per month. You could filter it by revenue account, transaction type, transaction status, payment type, and credit card type. Did you have a question?
No, so I'm just saying, so it's kind of like, we get all this information, we export it into QuickBooks. I'm sure we'll get there soon. But obviously when I set up a new revenue account in QuickBooks, I set it up in MemberClicks as well. When I reconcile in QuickBooks, I also reconcile here, or you're just matching it up? That's what I was kind of wondering how they.
There's a couple of different ways that we can do it. Are you guys, and I feel like we've already had this conversation, but it might have been another association. Are you guys on QuickBooks Online or desktop?
Desktop.
Perfect. So because you're on desktop, what you'll be able to do over time is pull your transaction report from MemberClicks, export it to an IIF file. You'll have the ability to take that IIF file, import it into QuickBooks. It's really simple. You go to like File, File Import, Import IIF. And that's going to allow you to import that IIF file to reconcile your accounts, your transactions in QuickBooks. So basically your invoices will no longer be held in QuickBooks. They would be held in MemberClicks. Now, the way that happens is it will map your revenue accounts. So it's crucial that your revenue accounts are listed with the exact same name as they're listed in MemberClicks, as in QuickBooks. They have to be the exact same. If they are not,
yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's how they're mapped. If not, what's going to happen is QuickBooks will create duplicate revenue accounts. So when we're ready to play with this, when you're ready to do a transaction report, my recommendation is first doing a backup of your QuickBooks, taking a couple of your accounts just as examples, a couple of transactions from MemberClicks and importing into QuickBooks. That way, if anything happens that needs to be fixed, you have the backup and it won't create any problems. Now, I will go ahead and throw out is what I have seen in a perfect world, you would do it that way. But I would have to say, the majority of my associations I work with, their financial person doesn't just want to throw away what they've done for years and all of a sudden put it all on MemberClicks. So I would have to say the majority of my associations are honestly running both and using them to check one another. versus doing everything in MemberClicks and importing into QuickBooks. It is totally up to you guys. I think it's more about.
Part of the reason this is nice is I'm not double doing it. I mean, right now,
Exactly.
it comes through PayPal. I have to individually type it in there. I mean, if I'm able to get this through Moolah and just roll it in, that's fantastic, right? As long as everything's reconciling, it should be fine.
Exactly. And that kind of brings me to a question. I was thinking about it as I was putting in your revenue accounts. Are your revenue account numbers, are they actually a part of the revenue account name, or is it just something that came over from QuickBooks?
No, I think they're part of, ooh, that's a good question. I have to look and see.
Let me know, because I'm not supposed to include the revenue account name. Typically, when I receive a chart of accounts, there would be, like, I would get it in an Excel file, and usually that number, the account number, would be in a separate column in the Excel file that the person would have exported from QuickBooks. In your case, they were in the same column, so I didn't know if it was because it came over that way, or if that's just how you provided it to me. But if it's not part, they're not part of the name.
I'll tell you what. I think they're all one thing, but I will double check. And then because we brought this over from Peachtree to QuickBooks, and they do it a little different, right? So I had to keep everything.
Gotcha.
So what you're wondering is, can we go by number only? Or do we
not by number only? Traditionally, and let me show you an example. Traditionally, it would look like, I'm already here, this. Annual comp without the number. But if the number is part of the revenue account name, then it does need to, in fact, be like what you've shown, like what you provided. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, no, I'm getting it now. Yeah, I'm just writing a big star for me to look at that. Okay. Because I had to see how it's kind of set up. We could, I mean, it's also changeable, right? I could change the names.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what would basically happen is,
and then re-give it to you.
Yes.
So, okay.
And we can always make edits with what we have. The only thing we can't do is, once we've put money into a revenue account, we can't delete that revenue account, but we could still change the revenue account name.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
And then that will help your length issue, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Any other questions on this piece? No? Okay. Awesome. All right. Okay. So the next item that we're going to look over, we're going to transition our brain process a little bit, our thought process a little bit, and we're going to look at attributes. So to do that, I'm going to go to database and attributes. Now, an attribute is just a piece of information that helps describe your member. So my name being Adrienne, my name being an attribute of who I am. So it's all the fields that you're going to collect on your members. We separate our attributes into 3 different categories just to make it easy to search for in the system. We have built-in attributes. That's what you see on my screen here. Built-in attributes are the pieces of information that we know you guys are going to collect in the members, so we just built them into the system, because across our 1,800 plus associations, we've seen them all collect these same fields on their members. Things like first and last name, email address, physical address, phone number, organization.
Okay.
Now, we cannot remove these items from the system, but we can build upon them or manipulate them. So what that means is, for email address, physical address, and phone number, right now, so for email, we've collected 1 email address on your members so far. You guys may end up wanting to collect more than 1 email address on each member. In our system, you have the ability to collect up to 5 email addresses, 5 physical addresses, and 5 phone numbers on one member at any given time. So right now you just have email. You may want to have a secondary email, a professional or business email, a spouse's email, maybe a tertiary email. And this is going to create up to 5 different, we call them labels. They would be fields where your members can fill in up to 5 email addresses. Same thing, like I said, with address and phone number. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that, and so then this would be where, so Jen, I think that this is where we had talked about, I think it would be a custom attribute where we would add in where they need to determine whether or not they're a title person or an escrow person or sales.
Oh, those categories that we talked about.
Yeah, I think that's where this would go under, it would be a custom attribute.
And then can you send like emails? But yeah, so you just pick the attribute and send the email. Is that the way it works?
So, say that one more. Yeah, say that one more time.
So if we create a couple of categories, if we split people into escrow versus title, and then I want to send an email to the escrow people, then I could pick the category and send the email to the escrow people.
Not quite. So in our system, the emails are only going to go to the primary email address that you have. You can't pick and choose what email address you want to send things to.
No, it would be, I think, so can you go back, Adrian, to custom attribute?
Yes. So, okay, I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
now you're kind of segueing into custom attributes then.
So we would create a custom attributes called title professional, and then another one called escrow professional.
Yeah.
And then that person would check that off, and we would only want to email, say, for instance, to those people that have a yes on that custom attribute. We can do that, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So we can create as many custom attributes. So that would be the second type of attribute we keep in the system. We can create as many custom attributes as you would like to have on your members. And yeah, you could create a selection set where you could determine what type of member they are and search on those different selections in the custom attribute and then send targeted emails based on those responses for the selection set. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, exactly.
I think the one difference is you'd make one custom attribute called like business role, and then you'd use a selection set. And underneath the selection set would be the 3 or 4 different criteria that you want to track.
Exactly.
Adrian? So like you'd have business role, and underneath that you'd be able to select administrator, title professional, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. Yeah. So right now you have a type, a custom attribute called type, and in here, administrator, escrow, title, sales, accounting. Whoever has checked each of these items in their profile, they could even check multiple. So maybe for some reason they're sales and accounting, or sales and administrator. Then you could search, they could have multiple of those checks checked off for each attribute, and then you could search by that in the system and send those emails, those targeted emails that way.
Okay. So we just need to give that a new, because type is not very descriptive. Okay, gotcha.
We could call it, I could change it while we're here. What could I call this instead?
What do you think, Jen?
Title professional, I think, is fine.
Well, business role, I think, would make more sense because one of the options is title professional.
Or what type of title professional are you? Maybe, can we make it a question?
Yeah. Of title professional.
Are you? We can change it later. I'm just.
Yeah, just kind of, we could definitely call that. We can call these anything that you want. Now, we're going to be using built-in and custom attributes on our forms. These are actually going to be the fields that we'll be using to collect information from the members form that they take. Like if somebody takes a membership application, we're going to be using these built-in and custom attributes on the membership application, and through these collect that information and store it in their profile. So these are actually helping in building out the demographics of your members.
Okay. Well, and most of these things are for the person underneath the company. So I'm not quite sure how that works. It's not for the company. See what I mean? Like only director category is for the company. Everything else would be for the person under the company.
Right, and we'll actually be able to specify what fields we want collected on the company and what fields we want collected on the individual. We can actually do that in the member type settings because there may be some specific things you want to collect on just maybe those individuals, because we kind of have two different types of profiles, right? We have the company profiles and then the linked individual profiles.
Okay, so member type settings, what do we want to collect? Okay.
And we
So
would
like
we would just tell you guys and you set all that up? Is that how that works?
No, we set it up,
Oh, we do. Okay.
I think.
you set up additional custom attributes, or you set up what shows up in the members' profiles?
Yeah.
What are you? Well, under database, and so let's go back, database to member types. And by default, what happened was, if I go to edit settings for agent, for example, so notice here, custom attributes, that's what we were just looking at. If we assign those custom attributes right now, by default, all of these are included in the company. This is the company profile.
Right, which we would not want. So, okay.
Ah, I see. And then same thing. So by default, when we set these up, yeah, we assigned all attributes to all profiles.
We would want some stuff. So, okay.
So if you guys wanted to go through that, yes, you can do that under custom attributes. These are for the company profiles anytime. So notice everything under linked profile general settings. These custom attributes are for the linked profiles. Linked profiles. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's where they are. So, okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Megan, I think the easiest way to go through this will be to sort of pick a specific user and that you know fairly well and go through their profile and say, this is the additional information we want. And we can kind of take lists of what custom attributes you need to create and what type of profile they should be assigned to. So then we can kind of go through in one fell swoop and add a bunch as opposed to trying to kind of figure it out on the fly.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of them are kind of basic. I don't think we'll need a ton of custom attributes. But I was thinking on that, like the committees would be good. They could check off. That'd be nice to know. What I'm wondering, and we can talk about this later, is sort of like, so we have CTIS number in there. Will that automatically populate, or are they going to have to know this and type it in? Because I would want it to populate.
That's one of those things we're going to go through.
Okay.
Adrian's going to show me how to export lists. And so once some of this stuff is set up, then we can export the list. I can cross-reference it with the information we have and then repopulate the database with their CTIS or CESS number.
Okay, so that'll last. Okay. Or actually, anytime really, once we get the data. And so so that makes sense. So pretty much sooner rather than later, we need to cull the numbers so we can get that in there because I don't want to launch without that. So, okay.
Something else that I wanted to mention is I mentioned earlier that the built-in and custom attributes are going to be collecting information in your members and storing it in your members profiles. So that works. I think I can kind of address the question that you had in there, the opposite direction. So if I've been a member, you have all the information in my profile about me. When I go to take a form to register for something, any fields you're asking me that you've already collected on me will auto-populate with my information. So I'm not having to put in my address or whatever numbers every time I come in. They're going to auto-populate into the form.
Okay.
That might have answered a question in there. So I'm going to go back to database and attributes. So I did mention that we have three different sections or three different types of attributes. We have built-in attributes, custom attributes, which we've reviewed both of those two. The third is system attributes. System attributes are used by the system to determine the length of your members' membership period, how much they owe in dues, when they're up for renewal. So it's things like expiration date, last renewal date, join date, member type, member number, status, kind of things like that. So those are the three different types. You guys are going to see these attributes all over the system. a million times. So knowing that we have built-in, custom, and system attributes will definitely help you guys out, those 3 different types and what they would be. All right, the last item that I want to go over with these attributes, and this is the last 2 things for you guys to complete in the system if you haven't already done so, that would be profile owner attribute security and attribute security. Profile owner attribute security determines what your members can do and see in their own profile. So your members are going to log in, go to a member landing page, and they'll be able to edit their profile. Whatever you give them the ability to edit, and we've got a legend over here, maybe just view, edit, or what's hidden from them altogether. So for example, as an admin, you guys can do whatever the heck you want to do. So we can say that you can edit everything about your own profile because you're an admin. You can edit anything. The abstractor. You may want the abstractor company profile. What can be edited within that company profile? Maybe most of this you want the key contact to be able to edit. But I want you to keep in mind, well, probably that you'd want them to be able to view. But what I want you to keep in mind is down here at the bottom, we have some system attributes that you would never want anybody to be able to edit, like join date, last renewal date, last modified date, member status, member type, member number. This is also where you can hide the member number altogether. The reason that I just kept this last modified thing just as not being able to be seen is because I can't tell you how many times you guys may go in and make an edit in a company profile, and then the key contact calls you guys and they go, I was just in my company profile and information has been edited because this said it was edited yesterday, but I haven't been in the system for 2 weeks. Somebody has compromised my profile. And it's just hard to explain. No, it was just us. It's kind of based on your members, but I get that a lot. So I would almost just hide it altogether so you don't have to worry about anybody being concerned their profile's been hacked into or something. Does that make sense?
The administrators, correct?
So this is what the abstractor.
No, but we're administrators. When you say administrators can do everything, that's just me, Jen, and Brendan, right?
Correct.
Okay. Just
correct. Yeah. And then abstractor rep, same thing. Maybe they can edit everything in their profile and you're fine with that, but same thing, right? They should never be able to edit their system attributes. So I'm kind of doing a couple of these for you. So I will want you guys to come in here and determine what you want your members to be able to do and see in their own profiles. The only other thing that I want to make mention of is this also determines the information that can be brought in using the data merge tool. So when you all send emails to members or non-members, maybe just prospects, and you have dear data merge field for first name. If you don't have it set up that they can see their first name, it's going to say dear blank because the system doesn't recognize they have permission to see it. So we can change this. For prospects, we really want them to be able to view everything so that you never run into a problem where you send them an email, chose a field to data merge into that email that you didn't give them permission to be able to see, and now it doesn't look professional when they receive it. Now, prospects will never have a profile, so it doesn't matter if they can see everything because they don't have a profile that they can access, if that makes sense. So you guys will just want to go through this for each of your member types in here.
All right, and then you're taking off information and information only, so they'll be gone from that list because they're not a member type.
Exactly, so don't worry about them. Okay. Exactly.
Perfect.
The second piece to this, and these are tedious, but you'll never have to do this again once it's done, is attribute security. The difference here is this is what your members can see in other members' profiles. This also could have to do with if you had a public-facing directory. So this looks the same, but we've added in a little drop-down over here. So the way this would work is, as an admin, what can you do or see to prospects? You're an admin. You can do anything you want. As an admin, what can you do or see in abstractor profiles? What can you do and see in abstractor rep profiles? Other admin profiles, agent profiles, and so on. So for you guys, you can do anything. But then what we would need to do is use our drop down and say, okay, abstractor reps, what can they do or see in prospect profiles? Nothing. You don't want them to see prospects. What could they do or see to the abstractor company profiles, other abstractor reps, admin profiles, agent profiles? Are you guys catching on?
That is, can view, right? Like they could just see it. They can't change other people's stuff, right?
Exactly. So it's really not a matter of what can they see or edit. It's a matter of what can they see or not see.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know this is tedious, but once this is done, like I said, I promise you'll never have to do it again. And the cool thing is it really gives you the ability to determine exactly what your members can do in your system, and the permissions that they have in their own profiles as well, which is kind of cool. All right, any questions? Awesome. Last thing that I want to point out, using your search bar up here, and there's a couple more things that we'll talk about next time. Using your search bar up here in the system, if you guys wanted to start searching your database, the second that you type in 3 letters, it's going to search for those 3 letters in first names, last names, organization names, and email addresses. So you'll notice where it's highlighted in the email addresses, the last names. If it was going to be in an organization or first name, we would have seen that highlighted as well. Once we've found the individual that we want to view, we can select their profile. And this is the linked individual's profile. Up here in the top left-hand corner, we have all of Barbara's built-in attributes. Over here in the right-hand corner, we have all of Barbara's system attributes. In the middle section, if they're linked to a company, you'll see a quick kind of glimpse of their company. We can even view the company profile from here. And then down at the bottom, we have a summary of our built-in attributes and custom attributes. If you needed to edit any of this information, you would select the edit button that you'll always see right here in the right-hand corner of your profiles. It floats with the page. We can select edit, and now we can edit any of these fields. From your members' profiles, you'll also be able to view their contact preferences. Message history will house any message ever sent to that member from MemberClicks. E-list and committees, our social community items, we'll talk about those on our social community training. Form submissions will be any submission, any form submission they've ever submitted. Invoices will be any of their invoices. And then we even have a notes area where you can add notes to the profile. I do want to give you guys a disclaimer. Notes are not able, from this area, they are not able to be exported from the system. These are in the system, you can't pull them out. Okay?
Okay. You could copy and paste, right, if you had to?
Yeah, you can copy and paste if you had to, but I've just, so what we can do is add a custom attribute, a custom attribute called notes, and that can be exported. My members in my associations got used to that, and so we would do it, and then when they saw this notes tab, they kind of thought it would translate the same way, but it doesn't, because it's kind of a recent add type thing. So anyways, that's why I just wanted to give you guys that disclaimer, that warning. If you wanted a notes field that you could export, we would just add a notes field in the custom attributes, and you would be able to export that info.
Okay.
Okay. And that's everything for today. Any questions for me?
No, I think it's starting to come together a little bit more than last time, that's for sure. So.
Okay, good. I'm thankful to hear that. We've still got a long way to go. So if you're still feeling a little lost, don't worry. It'll even take some kind of real life getting your hands dirty in the system to really have everything click. I'm going to send you a follow-up email. If you guys will go back and make sure invoice templates are done, the attribute security and profile owner attribute security, make sure those are done. Then we'll be in really good shape. I know we've already got our next training scheduled for Friday. We've got 2 hours to go over content and forms. So if you have any questions prior to that, let me know and we'll jump in, okay?
Okay.
I've actually got sort of a quick question, Adrian.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out when we're using the form for a user to purchase one of our on-demand online courses, we're trying to figure out, they have their own registration system that the user has to go through. So we're trying to find a way to not make the user go through and fill these all 9, 10 fields or whatever out again. Do we have the ability to like sort of build a link when a user buys a course so that we can take certain attributes that we already have in the system and use those to formulate like a link, if that makes sense? It may not make sense.
I don't know if I was totally following that. So if somebody registers for an event in MemberClicks, you want to be able to take specific attributes, and are you saying like have them populate in somewhere else? Say that again, maybe.
Correct. So basically, like, they get their confirmation email. The confirmation email would have a URL in it, and that URL would include things like their first name, their last name, their user ID number, and things like that, so that it'll basically, by clicking on the link, it creates their profile in this other system.
What other system are you wanting it to be created in?
Is that we work with a company called what are they called? They're called eOnline. They do our on-demand education. And the way their system works is the person has to go in and set up a profile, right? So they can go in and out of this class. And we were just trying to figure out a way, because they purchase it on MemberClicks, right?
Correct.
And then they have to go back to this other thing and then re-put all the same information in. And so we're just trying to figure out a way to avoid that. So they don't, have they been in MemberClicks before, a lot of it would auto-populate. But we were just trying to make the user experience a little bit easier, and there just doesn't seem to be a super easy way to do it.
Yeah, so my first step, there's a lot of ifs in that scenario. And I see you just kind of sent an example, Brendan.
Correct.
So the first question would be, can this other link integrate? Do they have any, do they allow access to their API? And you're going to call me on my bluff because I've done this, but I don't quite have those technical terms down. But we do allow access to our API. I could give you that information, but can they integrate? Do they have the ability to do that? And then if they say they can, that still doesn't mean 100% that we can communicate with them, or they can communicate with us. Like, it would just depend. So I just went through this process with, I have an association that wanted to use a website called Higher Logic. He loved us for the membership stuff, but wanted something more custom for the website stuff. And also has his members only information in Higher Logic. So that means that Higher Logic has to be able to read and talk to MemberClicks and know when a new member is added in MemberClicks. Boom, the same thing. It automatically happens in Higher Logic. So that sounds like what we want to do with this website. So first step, find out if they allow any type of integration, because we do. It would just be if they can.
Yeah, I'll get more specific with them, but my expectation is they were looking to either get an HTTP request from you when they would purchase a course, which would basically just send over the user's info so that they could just create the account, or basically via this system where their confirmation link would allow them to basically click the link. The link has the embedded details in it, and then that sort of creates their account, and they can immediately log in and go, if that makes sense. In other words,
yeah,
even though you've got the API, they're probably not going to update their system in order to use it.
Right. I don't totally understand how that would work.
Okay.
I think through our forms piece, I don't think that's what communicates. I think it's the membership piece. I will ask and see what I can find. But I've never done that before, and I've never been asked that before. And so I doubt it can happen. Yeah.
Simply as possible, what we're looking to do is when a user completes a form in the confirmation email that gets sent to that user, we would have a structure that includes, if you look at that link that I sent you, https eondirect.com/site pages, blah, blah, blah. Anywhere where we've got, like %5B external, that percent sign would be there. And then we'd be looking to import part of their user ID into that link. In other words, we're sort of constructing the link in steps using the profile information for the user.
We do have a data merge field we might be able to plug in there.
Okay. Yeah, that
from their profile.
Yeah.
That could work. That could
and this
work.
Would be something I understand we would need to go in and build this link. It's basically sort of like a mail merge. So you build the link and you put mail merge fields in specific sections of the link that would just import fields from the user's profile.
Yeah, so that's totally doable. If that's all we have to do, we definitely have, we can, in the confirmation email, we can say HTTPS, so on, so on, so on, and it can be / data merge member number,
Okay.
/ data merge username. So we could definitely do that. We'll test it and we'll see what we can come up with when we get to the forums training. How's that sound?
No, that's perfect. I just wanted to know if we had a path or not. And so I'm absolutely happy to roll up my sleeves and dig in on that stuff.
Awesome. Cool. So let's start by playing around. I know we've got that coming up Friday. So let's start by playing around a little bit, seeing what we can come up with, and then we can see if that is something if doing something that simple will work for us. Okay?
Perfect. That sounds great.
Awesome. What other questions do you guys have?
I think that's good. And I actually have to sign off because I got a meeting.
Yes, I know we're going over. I'm going to